Good Tuesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you're having a great afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Deshaun Watson continues to check boxes along the way with his rehab. He was on QB Unplugged with his personal quarterback coach, Quincy Avery, also coaches a few other NFL quarterbacks, talking about Watson's and Quincy Avery's offseason workouts.
But then you're really hey, when we're going, I want to get to these 100, 120 throws in a day, right? And you push the limit on how many throws you get into. So I think everybody got their own rhythm, and it's trying to manage all those different cadences in terms of how many throws does this guy want, this guy want. What do they need to work on, right? Because I got to watch every throw you had the year before, dive into that, so I could be like, all right, this is the throws that we struggled on. This is where we got to improve the most. So it's like a fine balance between, like, let me make sure he gets all of his work in, and then that he doesn't go too hard. So when the season comes, he's still ready and available to throw on the way. To throw it.
With that, let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, I know you wrote an article kind of Deshaun's checking the boxes and he's going to progress towards throwing. It sure sounds like he's the kind of guy they're going to have to make sure they pull it back and he doesn't try to do too much too soon.
Yeah, he should start throwing within a couple of weeks. He's just probably coming back from Rome. He was vacationing in Rome, but he did hit the UCLA weight room last week before he went to Rome. So that was another step in his development. And then the next thing is to start some light throwing over the next several weeks. Sometime in March, he will start some light throwing. He's either on track or a little bit ahead of schedule right now. But you're right, he's someone that, I've watched him practice for these few years, and I've watched him rep things over and over and over and over again until he gets them right. And I'm sure he's going to want to do that. I'm sure he's going to want to get out there and be throwing more than he should. And they will have to kind of keep the clamps on him a little bit to make sure he doesn't overdo it.
I know you addressed this on the Orange and Brown podcast. What do you think Ken Dorsey can do to get him back into that, top 10, whatever it was, status as an NFL quarterback?
Well, Ken has spent the bulk of his career, his entire career really, working with Cam Newton and Josh Allen. And so, he's going to really be able to bring over everything that he has learned from working with those guys and apply it to Deshaun Watson for the most part. Now, those guys are bigger. They run, they have a power running game about them. You cannot do that with Deshaun Watson or he's going to get hurt. So you have to modify that. You have to pivot from that. But for the most part, there are things that can cross over from those guys to him. And, there's just a lot of the, the spread concepts, the RPO concepts, and then the drop back world that he basically learned from, from Brian Daboll, which came from, Bill O'Brien and that should translate well because Bill O'Brien coached Deshaun Watson. So I think there's some of that element there.
We've seen flashes of it. Do you think he still has that top 10 quarterback in him? I mean, you go back to that Ravens second half, and, I hate to point individual things, but you saw some elite quarterback play at times from Deshaun Watson.
Yes, I still think he has it in him. And as long as he can stay healthy, I think that you will see more of that quarterback that you saw in the second half of that Baltimore game. But here's a point that I've been making on our podcast and elsewhere, and I'll probably write something about this fairly soon. And that is Deshaun Watson has not played a full season since 2020. And I think there are development issues that might go along with that everyone has to kind of take into account. He's not just picking up where he left off in 2020, and neither are defenses or defensive coordinators. Defensive coordinators have now had more opportunities to work with these dual threat quarterbacks and try to figure out ways to solve them and work against them. And then in that time when you're playing, say he had played all of 2021, all of 2022 and 23. You pick things up, you learn things along the way, and the game slows down for you. He hasn't had that full season to be able to do that. Whereas his classmate from 2017, Patrick Mahomes, he's seen everything in those amount of years. He's seen the new stuff that defensive coordinators are are throwing at him. He's seen the old stuff, everything in between, and he's just gotten that much more experience. So I think to expect that Deshaun can just pick up where he left off in 2020 and that there won't be some other things that you have to take into account, that would be silly. All those things have to be accounted for.
The other thing that, the Browns in the front office, I'm sure they have a plan. How do you think they handle the cap number with Deshaun Watson this year?
I think you probably have to dig back in there and, and maybe pare that down a little bit. He's got a $64 million cap hit. You probably want to bring that down and give him some more upfront money, because it's just a matter of when he's going to make the money, not how he's going to, he's going to get it. It's all fully guaranteed. It's just a matter of when you want to, cut a big check or what you want to do. So, they'll probably go back and do that so that they can accomplish their other roster goals this season.
All right. Along those lines, we've talked and you've said all last year that they probably needed another wide receiver. Take a look at this. This coming from Adam Schefter. Due to his 2023 cap number, Mike Evans' franchise tag would be over $28 million, $28.4 million, instead of the regular $21.6 million. That sounds like a bargain, huh? Meaning he is not expected to be a tag candidate, meaning Mike Evans will likely hit free agency. Of course, Buccaneers could figure out a long-term deal before he does, but it sounds like there's a realistic or a reasonable chance he hits free agency. Is that, he'd be 31 in August. Is he the kind of guy you could see Andrew Berry trying to corral?
Possibly. I mean, if you could add another receiver like that, I think it would be a great thing to do. I don't know if they want to spend that much money on their next receiver. I have a feeling they would probably want to go a little bit more middle of the road in terms of salary, knowing that you have a $24 million cap charge for Amari Cooper. But certainly, anytime you can add a weapon like that for Deshaun Watson, it's really going to help him a lot. And he's going to need all the help that he can get to make sure that he can come back and be as successful as they expect him to be. So you want to surround him with as much talent as you possibly can. And, everything should be on the table at this point.
Yeah, the only thing that scares me about Mike Evans is 31, and he's been pretty durable, but big, really, I know he's not a burner, but he seems to get by defenses, really good at the point of attack, the type of target that seems to succeed with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good. I mean, he's a major reason why Baker Mayfield had the season that he did. And I'm sure that the Bucs are going to do everything they possibly can to bring him back. I mean, my goodness, how do you let a guy like that go? I can't imagine that you would be able to build on the success that you had last year without Mike Evans in the stable. So I think they're going to do everything they can to keep him. And, we're going to find out so much of this stuff when we go to the Combine next week. We get an opportunity to talk to all the general managers and all the coaches. And, you just find out so much at that Combine about this kind of stuff.
So this is another one. This from NFL Rumors. That's a legitimate website and Twitter handle. Gabe Davis expected to leave the Bills in free agency. Davis posted a 7.5 minute tribute, if you will, to his time in Buffalo that kind of spanned the years he's been there. It was almost like he was saying goodbye. He is expected to hit free agency. Now, Gabe Davis is a guy who had a lot of success with Ken Dorsey, Brown's new offensive coordinator, and in his offense. Is that he's not somebody that's probably going to break the bank? He's not going to be the $25 million, probably not even the $15 million kind of receiver. Is that somebody that you think the Browns would have an interest in? I know you've written about it as well.
I think so. I think they should. I mean, he's exactly the tier I think that they could use, and he has the kind of production that they need. He caught 7 touchdown passes last season. That's what you want. You want a receiver who has demonstrated that he can score the football. That's so vitally important. A lot of times you have these receivers that are amazing, between the 20s, and then when it comes time to actually getting opportunities or getting the ball or catching touchdown passes, they don't seem to have enough of them sometimes. And, you need guys that, that can get those 6-7 points for you. So I think he's definitely somebody that they should look at, and they do have the inside intel on him. And I'm sure he would want to be reunited with Ken Dorsey. And, that's the exact kind of guy I would look at.
Yeah, and he's a guy that always seems to show up in big games. They refer to him in Buffalo, Big Game Gabe. This came out within the last little bit. The salary cap is due to be $250 million. That is an $8 million increase over what was expected. It's being reported by multiple outlets that the salary cap appears to be headed to $250 million. Obviously, the salary cap going up is good for the Browns. The Browns are going to be able to renegotiate. Andrew Berry had already said they know what they're going to do to get the money they want to do things in free agency. But now there's $8 million less of it that they have to get.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I mean, that's sometimes that's a free agent receiver or something like that. So, now they have that extra little bit of money to play with. I mean, it's not going to change the course of, the balance of power in the division or anything like that. But it's enough to, perhaps add another player, just extend someone or whatever the case may be. So that's good news for everyone.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we'll head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
All right, everybody. Let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery.
Like the $1 Lady Luck 5X, because the pink really pops like my safety vest. Plus a $1,000 grand prize really hammers it home for me.
And this $2 10X really nails it for me. $2 for a shot at 10 grand? That's rock solid.
The Lady Luck family of scratch-offs is the Ohio Lottery's first ever with 5 price points from $1 to $20. They're built for fun.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey, Dave Franklin, Cleveland. A few things for you today. Number one, just go out and sign Calvin Ridley. That'll be a big help on the receiving corps. 2, get the guy from Baltimore. If they don't franchise tag him, the defensive tackle guy. We're solid up the middle. Number 3, this year signed for Deshaun Watson to put up or shut up. Put your mouth on the field and back your stuff up. And number 4, whatever happened to that one guy, man, Ioannidis? Ain't he a good defensive tackle? Is he still available? But anyways, great show as always, Dave. I love you, brother. I'll be in touch.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Mary Kay, what did you think? Matabuke, it's Justin Matabuke is the defensive tackle. I don't think there's any way the Ravens let him go. He had a big year, but Ridley, what do you think about Ridley as a possibility?
You know what? I think he's somebody to look at. He has been on the Browns' radar before. And once again, he would not come cheap. But, he's definitely somebody to take a look at. And he's very productive. He's a very, very productive receiver. So, he's somebody that I think, they will at least think about. And, there are a number of guys in that category. And certainly he'll be one of them.
Yeah, and, relative to Deshaun Watson, look, nobody wants to be injured. He was injured this year. I think he wants to play more than anybody, and he wants to play well more than anybody.
Yeah, we did a podcast where, we kind of talked about, we gave out, awards for, most disappointing, most promising, all different kinds of things. And it turned out that, we ended up with Deshaun in the most disappointing category. And I fought that because I just don't think you can put him there when he was injured the whole entire season. So it's the semantics of the category, but I think that the reason why he was disappointing in 2023 is because he was injured the whole entire season. And we don't know what he was able to do, but I think we need to give him the benefit of the doubt and see what he can do when he's healthy. And hopefully for him and for the Cleveland Browns, he'll come back from this shoulder surgery nice and healthy, and they'll be able to realize some return on investment.
Again, I know you guys have talked about this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. Do you think that the Browns have a surprise in store in the offseason?
Oh, they might have a surprise, but I mean, even if we've talked about this, as you mentioned, even if they trade for a receiver, I don't know if that goes into the surprise category, because I think we all recognize that they could use another player like that. So I wouldn't be shocked if they went and found some receiver on another roster, like they found Elijah Moore, like they found Amari Cooper. Sometimes a guy needs a change of scenery. That's usually the best way to get them. And it just wouldn't shock me at all if they go out and do something like that or anything else. One thing that might surprise me would be if they traded like a veteran player. I've heard people have asked me about that, and I've heard little rumblings of, are they going to do this? Are they going to trade this guy, that guy? So I probably would be a little bit more surprised if they go ahead and trade a big name veteran player.
So this is kind of interesting. This is from Pro Football Network. They rank the NFL offensive play callers. They go Andy Reid 1, Kyle Shanahan 2, Sean McVay 3. They had Todd Monken 7, Zach Taylor 12, Bobby Slowick 14, and Kevin Stefanski down at 15. So top half, but 15. NFL's reigning Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski, deserves credit for guiding the Browns to the postseason despite constant quarterback upheaval. I don't know about you. I think 15 is awfully low. I mean, look at the success he has had throughout with his offense. Jacoby Brissett played pretty well in it. Baker Mayfield played really well in it. Kirk Cousins played. He's a really good play caller and he doesn't get the credit he probably deserves.
Case Keenum, the list kind of goes on and on. Jacoby. I mean, so yeah, I do think that he's underrated in that regard. And this is a tough crowd here in Cleveland when it comes to play calling. But I think he's probably way better at it than people do give him credit for. I don't think you become the NFL Coach of the Year if you're not better than 15th. I mean, like why did he win that then if he's 15th? Anyways, so I would put him higher than that. And it was a tough year to have any continuity in play calling because he had to use 4 different quarterbacks. For all intents and purposes, 4. We know they used a 5th in the last game, but he had to pivot. He always does, but that's why I have consistently stated that I think that he should continue to call the plays because I think it's just too soon to give it up when this is really your first chance to try to have a full season with Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, and Deshaun Watson, in theory, has the highest ceiling of any quarterback that he has worked with. That's the other thing, and I tend to agree with you for that very reason. I know you also have wrote an article, it's kind of interesting, 3 things the Browns can learn from the Chiefs and 49ers in Super Bowl 58, and I'll run through the 3 things. Attention to detail. The Browns should add more defensive impact players, and the Browns have to continue to innovate on offense. Take us through kind of your thought process with that article.
Well, so the first one, attention to detail. How many times did we hear after that game that the 49ers did not know what the rules were? And I just remember from having covered Bill Belichick for so long, how important that is, that attention to detail. You have to coach your players up on every single situation. They have to be ready for everything. They have to know when to do no moss if you're Nick Chubb. They have to, which is, not scoring a touchdown. Just in terms of, just 2-minute drill, out of bounds, all the little finer points of the game, you have to be really coached up on. And I think Kevin Stefanski is really good at that, but you can never try too hard. That should not have happened where those guys did not know the playoff overtime rules. I think it's a cautionary tale. The Browns need to learn from that.
Yeah, and the other thing, defensive impact players. You look at the defense and you kind of go, yeah, they were really good, but can never be too good.
Well, my point with this one was the fact that they did not play a very formidable gauntlet of quarterbacks in 2023. They just didn't. And it's going to be completely different in 2024. If everybody stays healthy, they've got a really, really difficult quarterback lineup. including Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and Dak Prescott and a healthy Joe Burrow twice, and of course Lamar Jackson twice, and we don't really even know who's going to be playing for Pittsburgh. It could be Justin Fields or somebody else. It could be Mason Rudolph, whatever. But they've got a much better lineup of quarterbacks to play. So I think they have to be careful that they don't rest on their laurels and think, hey, we were the number one defense. No, they need to go out. They need to get more impact players on this defense, and they need to continue to keep the pedal to the metal and just push that envelope and any other little cliche you could come up with there, because they're going to have to be better in 2024.
And you mentioned innovating on offense. That's an area that they got to find a way to unlock Deshaun Watson. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Well, yeah, not only that, but just, I think they need to put all their heads together and come up with some very creative and innovative things that maybe defenses haven't seen, or catch teams off guard, put new things on film. And I think that's the whole point of wiping out the offensive staff and basically starting over, is the fact that, they wanted to have a bunch of new energy, new vibes, new philosophies on offense. And when you look at Andy Reid, they're always pushing the envelope in Kansas City with those kinds of plays. And how many times in the last two Super Bowls have we seen them actually use that corn dog shuttle, where, you fake the jet sweep and then, you motion back out again, and the defender just leaves you open because he was caught off guard. So I think they need to try more new and innovative things like that. And they've got the personnel and the coaching staff now to be able to do that.
All right, before we go to break, again, I know this. You guys have talked about this on the Orange and Brown Talk podcast. What do you think makes it so the Browns will or won't get to the Super Bowl next year?
Well, I think the number one thing is that Deshaun Watson has to come back healthy and play well and help them get there. And short of that, you've got to have a really good backup. So, I would go ahead and re-sign Joe Flacco if you can. If you can't do that, then maybe you bring back Jacoby Brissett or somebody along those lines. The Colts almost, were able to make the playoffs with Gardner Minshew, and he played really well. So, you need to have somebody like that, because you never know what's going to happen with your starter. So I think that's important. I think Miles needs to finish as strong as he starts. I think that's vitally important. They need to stay tough at home, but I think it'll be harder this year because they will have better quarterbacks that they're facing this year. And above all, just continue to aggressively go out there and add talent, add that second edge rusher that can get you double-digit sacks, and another receiver and a few other positions.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer. Cleveland.com and I are going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, some burning questions that the Browns are looking at a week before the Combine starts. Sports4CLE, I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. This one from Sports Illustrated. 4 burning questions a week away from the Combine for the Browns. Number 1, which team are the Browns closer to replicating, the Chiefs or the 49ers? Number 2, with Jack Conklin making his way back from injury, how will the Browns juggle the offensive tackle position? Number 3, will the Browns pursue Mike Evans if he hits free agency? And number 4, will the Browns turn to Dorian Thompson-Robinson as their primary backup at quarterback in 2024? Mary Kay, we kind of dealt with 3 and 4 a little bit earlier, but who do you think the Browns, or is there another team you think the Browns are kind of replicating and modeling? 49ers, Chiefs, or is there another one?
You know what? I used to think that they were kind of trying to do some of the things that the Eagles were doing, but, the Eagles have taken a step back. And I think that happened when they lost their excellent, amazing offensive coordinator, Sean Steichen, and they've had a shakeup on both sides of the ball from a coordinator standpoint. So, I don't know that they're trying to emulate the Eagles right now. I think the Eagles are trying to get it back together. Um, I would say either one of those teams. Either one of those teams. I mean, you have some similarities between the 49ers defense, the Browns defense. Um, I think you can make a comp in some ways with either of one of those teams.
What about the tackle position? If Conklin's healthy and can stay on the field, it's a good problem to have that you have 3 starting caliber tackles.
Yeah, it is a good question. We'll have to see what they're going to do with that, because you don't really necessarily need 3 starting caliber tackles, although they did get down to their 4th and 5th tackles last year. From a money standpoint, you can do it because Jed is playing on his 5th-year option, which is not over the top. And then you've got DeJuan not making that much money at all. So those 2 guys together are not breaking the bank. So financially, you can swing it. But it's just a matter of, do you want to collect some assets for one of them? Do you try to trade Jack or something along those lines? So I don't know what they have in mind yet. But once again, at least right now, it is a good problem for them to have.
So I'll ask the question. I know the answer to this, but do you think the Browns turn the backup quarterback position over to Dorian Thompson-Robinson as their primary backup?
I don't think so. I think they learned last year that they do need to have that veteran backup. They realized how vitally important it is. They were caught short without one, and it's not that they don't want to spend the money on it because they have traditionally spent money on their backup quarterbacks over the years. So I think they really just thought that they were in good shape there, and they quickly realized that they need somebody good behind Deshaun, especially this year. They're going to need it with him coming off of the surgery because there is no precedent and we don't know exactly how he's going to come back from this.
So this one's from the Bleacher Report. Free agents, teams will regret spending their money on this offseason. They say T. Higgins. Higgins ranks among the top 5-ish receivers in drop rate over the last 2 seasons, accounts for an 8.1% drop rate. Man, I understand I understand the drop rate. That's an intriguing wide receiver if he hits free agency. I think there's going to be a lot of teams lining up to spend money on that wide receiver.
Yeah, the franchise tag opportunities opened up today and they run through March 5th. We'll see if the Bengals tag him. There is a good chance that that's going to happen. It could be a tag and trade kind of a situation, but there is a chance that he will get tagged. I don't know that the Browns would be wanting to spend that kind of money anyways. I think he's probably a little bit too rich for their blood right now, even though Deshaun put in his order for him. Not so sure that will happen.
Yeah, I get the thought. It is an intriguing skill set, though. This is from ESPN.com. Perfect landing spots for NFL top free agents. They listed 50 of them. None of them to the Browns. They have Zadarius Smith, best fit the Saints. Power rusher, 60 sacks in his career, 5.5 with the Browns in 2023. New Orleans finished 28th in sacks last season with 34. My sense is, and you would know better than me, I think the Browns would like him back as long as it's not a dramatic increase over what he made a season ago.
Yeah, I think so. I think they would like to re-sign him. I think that's something that is out there on the table and that they will try to do. And if it works out, fine. If it doesn't, then I do think that they should be able to find someone that can give them similar production. Again, you were not talking about a bunch of sacks. It was only 2.5 until he got to week 14 and added 3 more after that. So it wasn't like he was taking that kind of pressure off Miles the way that maybe people thought he would or hoped he would. But he's still a really, really good edge, and I think that they will try to re-sign him.
What do you think the Browns need to do to keep Myles Garrett fresh throughout the season?
Maybe you take some snaps off of him during games. Maybe you find ways where you can give him a few, some fewer snaps and maybe take some of that pressure off, because he does have 2 guys hanging off of him, or sometimes 3. So, that's a lot. That's a hard load to carry every single week, week in and week out. So, maybe you back him off a little bit, but that would require, once again, having another really strong, solid edge that you feel great about, that you can rotate in there. So you could do that. And then, during the week, maybe you can rest him even a little bit more and just have him be one of these guys that just does not practice much during the week. Maybe you roll him out there one day during the week, and the other days you just do whatever you can to keep him as fresh as possible and have him taking mental reps during the season. I don't know, but what I do know is that each year he does take such a heavy beating during the season that by that home stretch he is having trouble kind of finishing strong.
All right, before I let you go, I know you've answered this in your Hey Mary Kays. Potential roster casualties, guys that you think they might move away from.
I don't think there are a lot of those. They manage their cap so well. I don't think there are guys that you're going to have to really worry about in that regard. There will probably be some restructurings going on. And like Nick Chubb, you'll probably have to do something with his contract to make that, cap friendly for everyone. I don't think they'll really necessarily have to do anything with Amari. They've already reduced David's number for this year. So I think for the most part, they'll be in pretty good shape.
Mary Kay Cabot, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Mary Kay.
Sure, thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Always outstanding Browns coverage, cleveland.com, as well as in the pages of the Plain Dealer. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns. Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Go ahead and pop a clamp on that.
Let's take 5.
With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery, like this new $20 100X with its $1 million grand prize, I want to get my cut of that 76% payout.
So, good news. We're playing the largest family of scratch-offs ever. These Lady Lucks have all the fun and no complications.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's welcome Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast in. Jeff, you look at the offense 2024. Who do you think needs to step up if the Browns are going to make the deep run they want to?
You look at it, and obviously the first thing I think you're going to look at is a wide receiver position. With what Amari Cooper's done here the last 2 seasons, you need to hopefully, get players a little bit more commensurate to that level. Look, other defenses are going to obviously make their focal point to take David Njoku and Amari Cooper away. Elijah Moore, I think he made good strides last year. But I do think, you look at a guy like Cedric Tillman, and this is a guy that's, was a really, really difficult spot. I mean, imagine being a rookie wide receiver and through 17 games having 5 different starting quarterbacks. So you'd have to learn the routine of 5 different quarterbacks. So obviously a lot of stress was put on Cedric Tillman. And for Moore and Tillman, look, the Browns are probably going to be heavily invested in the wide receiver market. So, these guys are going to have a chance during maybe OTAs to get out there a little bit, kind of prove their worth here. Try it. If they're both smart, they're going to try to find Deshaun Watson wherever he is, spend time with him, most likely out in LA, just continuing to develop their repertoires. Because as we know, for right now, Deshaun obviously is the plan here going forward for the next couple of years. So you might want to get as acclimated as possible as you can to who the Browns signal caller is supposed to be. So both of them kind of have the inside track. But you look at both of those two guys, they're really, really going to need to step up here for this team, obviously. And DeJuan Jones is going to be interesting. There's a lot of talk. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of teams invested in the offensive tackle market. Will the Browns keep Jedrick Wills? Will they try to move Jedrick Wills? Will that open up an opening spot possibly for DeJuan Jones at the left side? And not that I don't think he can probably play on the level that we've gotten from Jedrick Wills to this point in his career. Plus, the Browns would be able to save a ton of money. But you have to think, with what DeJuan showed just through his rookie year, he probably could be even better, even though it would be adjustment going to the left side. A lot of people, well, he's never played the left side. Well, Jedrick Wills never played the left side till he got here either.
When you look at that the tackle position brings up an interesting point. Do you think they try to restructure Jack Conklin's contract?
I mean, it's certainly possible, and with Jack, it's always been a case, obviously, he's been a guy that's, had a ton of injuries, obviously 2 years here with the Browns, missed, most of one season with the Tennessee Titans. Tough spot to be in, but the Browns seemed committed and, even signed him when he was out for the year, a year and a half ago, gave him that contract extension while he was injured. Maybe try to lighten the load, maybe try to find a way to, obviously turn some of that money in a signing bonus, the way that they've been doing this and basically kicking the can down the street here over the last couple of seasons. But the Browns they're in a good position, but it's also a difficult position. They have 3 offensive tackles who are worthy of starting. But right now you only get to start 2. And I don't think they want to, basically have DeJuan Jones, be, a spectator. I think, all signs should be, making sure that DeJuan Jones is one of your starting 5 on the offensive line.
I know you've addressed this on the Locked On Browns podcast. Do you think it's third year in a row where the Browns trade for a wide receiver?
The market, it's going to be interesting because you believe 2 of the tape names out there, T. Higgins and Michael Pittman, are probably going to get tagged. Does that mean they get traded? It's certainly possible, but with the trade, a lot is going to go into that. T. Higgins, I could certainly see teams being willing to offer a first-round pick, something the Browns do not have. Michael Pittman, maybe not, maybe a second-round pick, but would the Browns' second-round pick be good enough? But, they have to, be conscious of what's out there. Brandon Ayuk is a very, very appealing option. He truly is. I don't know if the Browns necessarily have the capital to make a move like that, but that would be something where the Browns could have their next number 1 wide receiver. And to be honest, Brandon Ayuk could be as good as Amari Cooper, could be even better than Amari Cooper in 2024. But you start to have to maybe think about life after Amari Cooper, still obviously played just as well last year. Even better last year than his first year here with the Browns with the revolving door at the quarterback position. But, seems like the Browns, they're smart in what they do. You don't want to, you always want to be thinking 1 year ahead, not 1 year behind. And it's certainly something I think the Browns are going to look at, whether it's free agency, whether it's a trade, but also drafting one as well. Browns are going to, try to shape up that wide receiver room. And if guys, cannot step up, then they're basically going to get stepped over by other people brought in. Look, throwing the ball in the NFL is pretty much the way that you get to victory nowadays. Certainly saw it again with the Kansas City Chiefs. So for the Browns, getting that wide receiver room as talented as possible only behooves them, obviously, as, it seems like the transition, is going to come by force. We thought it was going to come last year, but Chubb obviously left the season early. Deshaun left the season early. But you got to believe with all the changes made on the offensive side of the ball, the plan is for this team to become a more vertical throwing team.
All right, so this from the Bleacher Report. Dream offseason trade scenarios for every NFL team. For the Browns, they say the Browns trade back in the second round. Fans rarely get excited about seeing their team trade back. It would make sense for the Browns if they can manage to retain players like Zadarius Smith and Shelby Harris. They won't have many glaring weaknesses. That same report says the Patriots would trade for Amari Cooper. Would the Browns part with Amari Cooper? Probably not if they can avoid it. Cleveland's facing a $20.6 million cap deficit. Moving him would save $12.4 million against cap. If Cleveland is willing to deal him now, it would be more interested in cap savings than acquire premium draft compensation. All right, we'll start with Cooper. Browns never seem to have to trade any of their assets because of salary cap. They always have the answers to those questions before they need them. So that ain't happening. And the trading back, they're more likely to find a guy they like sliding and trade up than back, I think.
Well, the two ways to look at this, I don't think they had any interest in, trading Amari Cooper. With that 12.6 number, that 12.6 number gets turned into a lovely little, a little bonus, obviously roster bonus, and then all of a sudden, Amari, then you look at Amari Cooper and he's basically on your roster for about, anywhere between $8.5 to $10 million. I don't think Amari's going anywhere. Obviously, that was one of the best moves the Andrew Berry regime has made to this point, giving up a 5th-round pick, getting back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. All Amari has done for this team. I also think and know that the Cleveland Browns love that Amari Cooper has a similar personality to Nick Chubb. He's basically a quiet assassin. The Browns seem to have, an infinity for those types of guys on the offensive side of the ball. The trading back is going to be interesting because there's a couple of factors here. This could be a very, very heavy offensive line draft. Does that appeal to the Browns? Yes, somewhat, but it also means that they could probably get somebody that they like a little bit later. Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock just had 10 offensive linemen going in the first 32 picks. It's also a wide receiver heavy draft, something that could appeal to the Browns as well. I think the Browns could say, hey, if we can drop back 10 picks and then get 3 cracks at top 100 players, I think that is something that could be appealing to the Browns because I think they could probably do damage. It's going to be a very top-heavy draft, getting to round 6 and 7. There's a lot of flyers, and there's going to be a lot of guys who are up in age, guys that the Cleveland Browns don't normally tend to even put on their board. So the Browns might think by dropping back, they can get a 3rd pick within the top 100. And then, they can view it basically as 3 day 1, day 2, 3 day 2 picks. But that would be something that probably would appeal to them.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll talk a little bit of defense. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. So, Jeff, last segment we talked about defensive or offensive players that need to step up in 2024. What about defensive players that you think need to step up next season?
Well, it's going to be, and Browns are going to have an interesting decision. I think everybody was excited about bringing Zadarius Smith here last year. But if you actually go to it and you kind of go through it all, did Zadarius Smith truly give the return that the Browns thought they were getting? And, a lot of Browns fans just think, oh, well, whatever, he'll come back. But I mean, Zadarius Smith has played for multiple franchises, only 1 year with Cleveland. So it's not like he's got this long relationship with the team where, hey, the money may have been a little bit better somewhere else, but I'm here, I'm comfortable. Zadarius Smith's been all over the NFL, so you're not sure you're going to get a decision like that from a player like him. Alex Wright, and I think Alex Wright closed out the season extremely strong. I think the Browns are in a unique position because Alex Wright is a smart player. Alex Wright does his assignments. So are the Browns looking at it as maybe, hey, Myles Garrett on one side, a combination of Alex Wright and Agbo Nkoronkwo on the other side? Can Alex Wright take that next step where maybe we don't have to go out and give, $8, $9, $10 million contract to an established defensive end? So for Alex Wright, I think, it's going to be a big offseason as far as he's concerned. He's a guy who puts in a lot of work here, so I would expect nothing less. Alex Wright is certainly going to make the decision for the Browns as tough as possible. Something in the defensive tackle room, and obviously you got to start with Siaki Ika, because he's one of the few guys currently under contract. Dalvin Tomlinson is here. The rest of that room, Maurice Hurst obviously gone. Jordan Elliott obviously gone. Not gone, but contract up. Shelby Harris currently without a contract as well. And Harris is another one of those guys. He's had several stops in the NFL. So it could be just about getting top dollar. It could not just be about, I've had my time here, I'm comfortable here. So a really tough spot there. The third one is definitely the linebacker position, because as much as I think and I want the Cleveland Browns to bring back, Sione Takitaki, it could be a situation where the Browns they've been kind of frugal. They've been kind of, fiscal as far as paying their linebackers. They are going to, at some point, pay JOK a good amount of money, which means they might not be interested in throwing a lot of money around to that room, which means Taki could get an offer that the Browns maybe not be interested in entertaining, which puts Tony Fields certainly in the spotlight there. Do they see if, we can maybe give him a year with some reps? Do we think something there with Tony Fields? But I don't want anybody to sleep on Diabate, obviously the undrafted free agent last year out of Utah, spent most of his college career with Florida. Great athlete, tested extremely well during the draft cycle last year. He was good for the Cleveland Browns on special teams. Look, the Browns want to get to nickel and dime as fast as possible, so it maybe won't concern them so much that they're not having a big price tag or big named as far as tenure within the league at the linebacker position. A lot of money is going to go to JOK. Maybe you got to find that new collection of running mates as Anthony Walker, and most likely probably not going to be back. And for Taki, it's a good position to be in. Obviously came back off the knee injury in a tough position, was supposed to be his free agent year. Him and the Browns worked something out so he can continue his rehab, play for the franchise that he's always been comfortable with. Had another good year for him. So somebody in that linebacker room, probably not named Anthony Walker or not named Taki, and certainly not JOK, has got to be somebody that's going to try to find a way to get themselves on the field for some reps that don't require special teams.
Well, without question, the defensive line improved last year. What's the next step? What's the next evolution in 2024?
I think it's probably going out and getting one more younger edge, obviously. That was the joy of, the Ogbo Okoronkwo signing. Was not a lot of money. Obviously, Miles, every dime he's getting is earned, and who knows, another contract extension could be even coming soon. That's just how well Miles has been. PFF's #1 rated edge rusher for 3 seasons in a row. It's going to be the defensive tackle room. And I think last year was probably more of just getting a lot of bodies in the room to overall improve the position. But, I know the Browns would love to have Maurice Hurst Jr. back. His Maurice Hurst injury may have probably worked against him as far as having a bigger market this offseason, as he finally found some NFL success. But I think the Browns saw firsthand the importance of just getting that straight interior pressure. As we all know, the week of the Super Bowl, plenty of Browns players talked that they felt that was one of the biggest reasons that they were able to beat the San Francisco 49ers. And with that game plan kind of being out there, we saw the Kansas City Chiefs try to attack the interior against the San Francisco 49ers. It is a much shorter path, obviously, to get to the quarterback that way. It also gives you the opportunity to plug the passing lanes, get in, hands up and way in front of the quarterback as well. So the Browns need to attack that position. And I wouldn't be surprised if another probably 2 to 3 year contract was handed out to bring in yet another veteran defensive tackle. They'd love to have Hurst back. They're not sure what they got yet, and obviously Siaki Ika, but having 3 guys they could count on would probably be something that would really appeal to them.
Well, along those lines, take a look. This is NFL defensive ranks in pressure rate by position group. And when you look at it, the Browns are 2nd overall. Edge rushers were 2nd. The interior defensive linemen, 22nd, so bottom half. And then the other positions, so linebacker, safeties, the blitz things, 14th. It just kind of goes to show what you're saying, that they need to get another guy that can get the penetration and get the pressure up the middle.
Well, I mean, Tomlinson, that was never what he was supposed to do, obviously. And the little he did is probably what was in the expectation of what you brought him in here for. Maurice Hurst was certainly a nice find. Ika, it was a lost year, very, very, very limited reps for him. Jordan Elliott, and it's just been this weird thing, obviously, where Jordan has now finished 4 years with the Browns. And, every offseason we heard from the Browns, basically they thought it was going to be the year And it just never really seemed to come to fruition. So, but yes. And, as much as they would like to have 4 or 5 edges and be able to rotate them, and you can use them on the inside as well, taking a 270-pound man and put him against a 320-pound guard, those are some really, really difficult matchups. Not everybody has the athleticism that Myles Garrett does. So finding somebody who can, get pressure on the quarterback consistently from the interior, probably one of the reasons why they will really, really be interested in getting Maurice Hurst Jr. back on this roster.
This is interesting as well. So you mentioned Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah had a great year. He was 4th among all NFL players in tackles for loss with 20. He only had 3 less than the TFL leader, Max Crosby, and JOK played 324 less snaps. So the other thing is all the other top ones were all edge type guys like Crosby. Even though they're listed as outside linebackers, he was an off-ball linebacker and still 20 TFLs.
Well, this was always the thing with JOK was, just how was he going to basically transition to being a full-time linebacker? And we heard for years with the Indianapolis Colts how much Darius Leonard talked about how much Anthony Walker had done for him. And Anthony Walker's effect on this team, on this defense, on JOK will never maybe truly be understood as far in terms of, statistical production. And he did miss a lot of time here. But once JOK was able to develop the read and recognition skills, you knew if that came, this was going to be something that he was capable of. He is just an absolute dynamic player out of the gate. If he sees it, he believes in it. And this was something that bringing in Jim Schwartz was very, very critical to the development of JOK, because it was, hey, if you think you see it, do not doubt yourself. Even if you're wrong, I do not want to take this fire away from you. And you saw it start to come fruition early in the season with JOK. And then with that obviously came, I am seeing it. I do know what's coming. So it became easier and easier for him to say, I think I'm right. I'm allowed to gamble if I think I'm right. And that is what led to the astronomical total. And then, of course, there were some weeks where the Browns just absolutely destroyed NFL offenses and held them to darn near 100 total yards in a game. And once that momentum gets going, it makes it even easier for guys to just attack and attack and attack. And, JOK, it's really, really been a fun process watching this player who was a hybrid defensive player at Notre Dame really settle in at the linebacker position. And now not just trusting his ability, trusting his reading ability, and trusting his instincts and becoming the force that he has for Cleveland.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Now I'm going to take one more time out. Other side of the break, some sneaky good free agents for the Browns to pursue. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Here comes the rush.
All right, everybody, let's take 5. With one of these 5 Lady Luck scratch-offs from the Ohio Lottery.
Like the $10 Lady Luck 50X. It's got prizes all the way up to $500,000, so you could really clean up.
The Lady Luck family of scratch-offs is the Ohio Lottery's first ever, with 5 price points from $1 to $20. They're an easy way to cook up some fun.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. This from Clutch Points. 4 sneaky good free agents for the Browns to pursue. Number 1, they go linebacker Drew Tranquill with the Chiefs. 4.5 sacks, 2023. It's only a half sack short of his career high. Played really well late in the playoffs as well. Another Chief, running back Jerick McKinnon, decline in rushing yards and receptions in 2023. Versatility remains an asset, could benefit the Browns' offensive strategy. He was banged up a lot as well. Josh Reynolds, wide receiver of the Lions, 608 yards receiving this past season, 8 touchdowns last 2 years. And offensive lineman Mike Nwanu boasted top 20 pressure rate among all tackles in 2023 with the Patriots. Any of those guys intrigue you at all, Jeff?
Maybe I would think on Josh Reynolds. But, if you're looking at, what we saw during the Joe Flacco run last year was, this offense with Kevin Stefanski finally becoming something that was successful vertically. There's names out there I think that might fit a little better in that realm. Maybe Gabe Davis. I mean, I'm not a fan of this possible $13 million a year. And obviously you want to maybe connect some dots between, free agents and maybe what you bought in, guys who maybe have played, for Ken Dorsey. Gabe Davis, certainly one of those guys. Running back, Zach Moss, one of those guys. Devin Singletary, I don't know, Houston's going to let him go, but did have a history, of course, with Ken Dorsey. And linebacker again, though, Drew Tranquil's probably going to want a couple of bucks, and I just don't think it's a way the Browns are looking to go right now. But the wide receiver position is certainly the one you're going to watch here, because I think, the Browns, you have to understand that you've basically developed one wide receiver to this point that you've drafted through 4 draft classes. And in his fourth year with the team, you actually traded him away. So I think the Browns, wide receiver wise, it's got to be something that they feel is a proven commodity and not just draft proven, NFL proven.
All right, this from Sports Illustrated, 5 backup quarterback options for the Browns to consider this offseason. Number 1, they go Joe Flacco. Number 2, Jacoby Brissett. Number 3, Josh Dobbs. Number 4, this one's a little off the wall, Cam Newton. Now remember, he did play. He did play for Ken Dorsey with the Panthers. Number 5, Mitchell Trubisky, recently released from the Steelers. I'm going to pass on that one. Maybe Flacco, Brissett. Are the two that
I look at Joe
most?
Flacco. Yeah, I mean, you look at Joe Flacco, and yes, that does make a ton of sense. But, what is Joe thinking right now? Does Joe Flacco want to play football? If Joe Flacco wants to play football with so many teams drafting quarterbacks early, there could be a position where, hey, we don't want to rush our rookie. And what if Joe goes in and has the first 4 or 5 games for that team the way he did for the Browns in 2023, and they're in the perfect position where they don't have to rush their rookie? But of that list, but the other thing is just, God forbid, and, most likely we're all thinking it'll probably be in Brazil. What if, Deshaun Watson starts the game 3 of 6? Everybody and their mother and their brother are going to scream to put Joe Flacco on the field. Is that maybe something the Browns want to entertain? My guess is probably not. But one thing that Jacoby Brissett did do well for this team was throw the ball vertically. And that, I do believe, has some appeal. I think they would like to maybe, if there was a chance, bring that relationship back, continue that relationship. Cam Newton, look, stick to what you're doing, Cam Newton, because you are fantastic at what you are doing. As far as Mitchell Trubisky, I don't have much interest there as well. For me, Joe Flacco would be a great story. I think Joe really wants to play football. So for me, of that 5 list, I think Jacoby Brissett is probably the one that makes the most sense.
All right, before I let you go, it is that time of year. It's this one's really off the wall. This from ESPN.com's Seth Walder. What is one move you want to see this offseason? He goes, the Browns trade for Justin Fields. If I were the Browns, I would look at Deshaun Watson mostly as a sunken cost. Try to upgrade at quarterback with no first-round pick. So much money already heading Watson's way. This would be tough to do, but trading a second or third-round pick for Fields, still on his rookie contract, is feasible. I'd like to see Fields in Kevin Stefanski's offense. The alternative is simply hoping that Watson improves, and if not, wasting another year of a talented roster. I don't think there's any way the Browns do that. And Watson was hurt last year. You saw flashes. Titans, you saw flashes, especially second half against the Ravens. Deshaun Watson's 8-4 in the games he started for the Browns.
I think people, and it's always the worst when, people just assume injuries and just don't factor it in, or factor it in as a player didn't play well. I think Deshaun Watson was playing more than fine in 2024. And, you look at some of these games that Joe Flacco won. You're telling me you didn't think Deshaun Watson was capable of winning some of those games against those same teams? Look, Joe played well, but, not saying, that, Deshaun couldn't have been capable of doing those same things as well. And the other thing is, if you're looking to upgrade, or we're to the point now where we're just assuming Justin Fields is an upgrade? Because if Justin Fields was an upgrade, the Chicago Bears would probably be trading away that number 1 pick, accumulating even more and more number 1 picks and building around him, wouldn't they? That would be my theory, is what they were doing. Nothing against Justin Fields. I want to see all the success in the world for him. His career is most likely going to be headed somewhere else. I do believe I think he most probably going to find a way to end up in Atlanta somehow, some way. But for the Browns, and the other thing is you're already talking about picking up a 5th-year option, which then means you're talking about extension. So how are you going to determine whether or not, in your opinion, Justin Fields is worth all of that? If the whole point is that you pray he never plays because Deshaun Watson plays and plays really well. It's just chasing too much. And with the Browns last year, you saw the Cleveland Browns win with Deshaun Watson, win with P.J. Walker, win with DTR, win with Joe Flacco. They used a 5th-round pick on one of those guys. The other 2 guys they picked up off the street.
Yeah, and you got to let – the other thing is DTR was supposed to be a developmental guy. So let him develop. Yeah, he is a developmental guy. Let him develop with the Browns. Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Always have a pleasure. You know that.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Always really good stuff. The Locked On Browns podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.